Welcome to the Sci-Fi Diner podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Herzog.
And good evening, I'm Miles P. McLaughlin.
I'm Chrissy Raffensperger.
And I'm Dave Sellers.
And welcome. It's good to have everyone back here in the diner, eating and joining us and feasting on the great things in sci-fi that we have. And we even allow pets in our diners. Just letting you know, Miles is holding a cat, so pets are allowed in our diner. Tonight, what we're going to be doing is talking about what's going on in our sci-fi world. We haven't done that in quite some time. And we'll talk a little bit about shows we're watching, returning sci-fi shows. And we have a special interview with who, Miles?
We had the opportunity to talk to Mr. Cal Dodd. He provided the voice for Wolverine in the X-Men animated series back in the 90s. And that show is making a comeback. It has made a comeback on Disney Plus, and so we thought it was apropos that we shared this interview.
Yeah, absolutely, and he was the template for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine too. So
yep, he gave us a great interview. He was fun to talk to, but I was a little nervous sitting next to him because he had on the blades on his hands,
the retractable claws.
Yeah, the claw. He had the claws, and I was close by, like. Hopefully he, doesn't move his hand much.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, so let's talk about what's going on in our science fiction world. And Miles, why don't you get us started here? Tell us a little bit what's going on in your science fiction world.
So there's not a lot of new sci-fi at the moment. So I've been watching a lot of non-sci-fi, but
we can't talk about that, just so you know.
Yes, we can, because one of those shows.
Fight Club. Can't talk about it.
That's right.
One of those shows. Get out. I didn't want her to knock a cord out.
Okay.
Hell on Wheels. I'm finally watching Hell on Wheels, and there is a lot of Star Trek representation and some good Canadian actors from our other favorite sci-fi shows. But Colm Meaney from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Anson Mount from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Our good friend Christopher Heyerdahl, Scott. I mean, if he talks for 45 minutes, I guess we can call him a good friend.
Yeah.
So I'm enjoying
the lowest standard for good friend is 45 minutes. Apparently you're in.
Yeah, you're in. Yeah.
Whole, process. There's an application you have to fill out.
Nope, you're in.
No,
yeah, I know. I knew it was like a whole. It was like a who's who of science fiction. It seemed like.
And so, and if you watch it, you see other familiar people. It's like, yeah, I've seen that person, other CW, Canadian sci-fi or whatever. But so I'm enjoying that. I'm in season 2. I am still watching Resident Alien and Quantum Leap on Peacock. I rewatched Picard season 3. I had a good time rewatching that. I am reading a lot more sci-fi than actually watching it. I finished reading the Star Trek novel Firewall by David Mack. Just finished that yesterday. I'm reading a bunch of time travel novels. Not that long ago, I finished Time Lost by Elsie Douglas, Castaway by Vlad Aharom, and I'm currently reading book 5 of the Cast in Time series by Ed Nelson.
Nice.
So how was the? We haven't had a lot of Star Trek novelizations out recently. How was David Mack's?
It was a fun read. It was fun to get back in that world because I'm not putting out as much Star Trek novels these days, and so he deals with Seven of Nine's journey of her getting back, her and Voyager getting back to Earth, and everybody's scared of her because she's an ex-Borg, and she would like to get into Starfleet, but they feel she's a security risk. So, not a spoiler, but we find out she hooks up with these people called the Fenris Rangers, and some people call them vigilantes, but they're doing some good, and she realizes that she has a mission and a burden to help those that can't help themselves, and so working with the Fenris Rangers gives her the opportunity to help out there, and
right.
But it's mostly about her and where she's trying to find her place in the world. And Janeway makes an appearance in it. Her and Janeway are still close, even though she can't. Janeway, despite Janeway's pull, she can't get her into Starfleet. Right. This depicts Star Trek has depicted a very optimistic world, but and things are less optimistic in the one that David Mack depicts. Especially if you're outside the Federation, it's kind of bleak at times. So it's kind of interesting juxtaposition we see. What else was I going to say about that? We see another security organization. It's the Federation Security Agency. They're almost like akin to our CIA. So this organization tries to recruit 7 of 9 to go after the Fenris Rangers in it. But yeah, it was a fun read, and it was fun to get to, as far as literary, get back in that world again, and read some new stuff. I've read tons of David Mack's novels and I've always enjoyed them. He never disappoints.
It seems like what they're doing is they're trying to tie in, Voyager into what we saw in Picard, right? And and you see that, you certainly see in Picard, you see, in all many of the Star Trek series, we've seen a pretty optimistic view of the world, and especially humanity and Earth, but you definitely see a bleaker one in Picard, so it makes sense that they kind of are traveling that vein of thought in that book. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of reading.
David, do you have any thoughts about that as far as the Star Trek novelization goes?
No, I haven't really dove into a lot of much of the new stuff that's come out in the last couple of years. I haven't read it, much of it. I haven't listened to really much of it. But that's mainly because it was mostly all in the Discovery timeline, and that just really didn't interest me much. But yeah, that's good. This is a 7 of 9 one. I might have to pick that one up.
Yeah. If it was set in the JJ verse, you'd be fine with it, right?
Oh yeah.
You had to go there.
Yeah. I'd be all over it.
Low digs, whatever it takes. I'm going to give David a moment alone.
Just a wallow.
Miles, anything else?
No, I'm just I'm looking forward to what we're talking about later. Just some upcoming shows. There hasn't been a whole lot of newer stuff lately, so yeah, a lot of my sci-fi consumption has mostly been reading.
Yeah, very good, very good. Chrissy, how about you? What's going on in your science fiction universe?
Well, I have been reading a lot of the Dying Earth series by what's his name? Jack Vance. Although it also has a lot of it's set in a very it says it's a very futuristic world setting, because obviously the Dying Earth, it talks about the red sun and what's happened, but it's more almost like fantasy-esque in a way, with how they use magic, but then they talk about magic in terms of science as well. So it's a very blended kind of thing where technology and magic is, and it's all kind of melded together. Kind of like how one could say that Star Wars is kind of basically wizards set in space. This is wizards that's in the far future Earth. And what's interesting is I didn't realize at first that it had originally been written in the late 50s, early 60s through the 80s, because it really does hold up well for a fiction series. Because it felt more, let's say, more modern, not as modern as something you might read now, but definitely still felt very modern. I could have seen it being published in 2000s, and it very, very similar to some of those other books I've been reading that are more fantasy-esque or science fiction-esque, depending on how you talk about it. The City of Stardust by Georgia Summers, A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel Jensen. Those. I've also watched the live action Avatar series, get my anime fix.
What did you think of the live action?
I mean, it kind of reminded me of a Disney live action where it didn't seem to add very much. Like, I don't quite understand what the point was of it, other than to do a remake.
Right.
But I also don't see the point of most live action Disney movies because I'm like, okay, why are you doing this? Because it's very like your choice is to either be like really derivative or to go completely off the original material. In which case, I'm like, you may as well go make your own independent story. So I guess that's my general feeling of most remakes is unless you're gonna do it like unless the first one didn't really do it justice, let's just like the Dune movie, or the original cartoon of like say Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and then you go back and you redo it like what they just put out for Dune Parts 1 and Part 2, or the Lord of the Rings movies, which I cannot believe are over almost 25 years old at this point, but those hold up beautifully. I just don't see the point of them. I don't know if you guys feel differently about remakes, but for the most part, I'm just like, what? Why are you doing this? If the original was really good, there's kind of not to doing it again. Like, why do you need to? There's so many things that we could do.
Chrissy, I'm with you on the remakes.
I don't understand them. I don't, because I watched the original. I'm like, it's beautifully animated. It's beautifully told. It's phenomenal for what was originally a kids show. So to redo it now, and they tried to make it more serious and like more for like an adult-ish audience, I feel like it lost something because in a kids show, there's like certain. I guess like I'm more forgiving about some of the things that just don't make sense, but when you try to make it more like in a serious take on it, then I'm gonna sit there and be like, and then I'm gonna start really critiquing you, on your world building, on your plot, on like, why would anyone with any sense think that this is a good idea from a purely strategic fashion? Like in a kids show, I don't expect that, and so I tend to judge things more on like, one, what is the medium? Two, like what is the intended audience? If the intended audience is children, I'm not necessarily gonna hold it to like the full, I don't want to say like adult logic, but I'm not expecting it to be a masterpiece of military stratagem. Like, I'm just not. I'm okay with like the enemy acting a little bit stupid, because quite frankly, they're also going up against some stupid kids. Like, so some of the remakes I was not. I'm like, it's there, it's a thing. I don't necessarily know why we needed to do it, unless it like really, really needed for purposes of like the technology wasn't really that great, or the first one really didn't do the source material justice.
Right. I guess the only thing I would say to that is that, and maybe a little bit of defense, is so many times the animated series that they're remaking, they haven't just come out yesterday. They've been out, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years. How old is Avatar? Avatar has to be almost 20 years old.
Oh yeah.
And the people that grew up with Avatar, new kids are not going back in, unless they're diehard anime fans, are not going back and watching the animated Avatar, and so this brings it into a little bit of a fresher audience, perhaps. And maybe another reason is that nostalgia sells, right? These people that grew up with Avatar are now in their 20s, maybe 30s, 40s, and they now have a little bit more money, disposable income. So this becomes a little bit of a marketing strategy that these people now have some income that they can invest into the Avatar franchise, and it's a little bit of, hey, let's go revisit our childhood, but let's do it in maybe a little bit of a different way. I'm not saying that's good or it makes the series good, but I'm saying there's a little bit of a rationale as to why perhaps they do this to series. I'm sure it's why they did Little Mermaid awfully and Lion King a little bit more acceptably. Um, as far as that goes, and neither of the, like, especially Lion King, I didn't feel was terrible in this as live action, but I
I
think that
mean,
the animated does the service just fine.
I you just cannot hold a candle to the animation of Lion King and the live action, which is just CGI version of Lion King. Makes zero sense to me whatsoever. But I also understand that, like you said, nostalgia sells. It's to try to introduce a younger generation to an old thing. Although I'm like, human creativity, like, there's so many stories for us to tell. Can't we tell new ones? So, even when I
Yeah.
see like things like race swapped this or gender swapped that, I'm just like, or you could go tell your own original story and not have this thing. Like,
Yeah.
go. I love original stuff that comes out from different with different genders or different cultures or different perspectives on things, and for me I feel like it's much more enriching for that, just because I don't like, because the underlying message that I get when they do that is, in order to be accepted or to be worthy, like, you have to basically just go and replace some other person, as opposed to the message of, you are worthy and awesome just as you are. But that's just my take on it.
Well, I want to say too. I think when you talk about nostalgia sells, I think that we are now in an age of that feels, I think, to younger people very unsettled as a general. Maybe to us as adults feels a little bit unsettled, and there's a little bit that nostalgia grounds us. If you look at like what's popular, like TikTok and Instagram and other platforms, it's these songs that are like 20, 30 years old, and it's kids redoing covers of these songs and that are going bonkers. And there's a sense of grounding that these franchises build into maybe a better time, a better era, a safer era, and maybe subliminally, and or some in some ways pulling on the tethers of our minds to kind of say, hey, you know what, things will be okay, and maybe there are ways that they comfort us in some ways. Maybe there's another rationale. I mean, as long as they don't deviate too much from the source material. But I don't know. This is just my little thought, maybe on that. I don't know how that lines up or not, or what you guys think of that. But
I, sometime they're gonna do a remake of The Crow, and I love the first one. The original one was great, but every one after that, I mean, it was basically like a straight to DVD thing. It felt like they didn't make the effort. I mean, okay, if you want to make this into a series, you got to you got to put the effort into it. It just and so there's a reason why the first there's a mystique with the first one. So I felt like they should have stopped at the first one, and all these other ones they don't hold a candle to the original.
right.
And so I'm afraid they're going to make this new one. I keep reading eventually that I don't know if they started filming for it yet or anything like that. There's been talk of years for another Crow movie, and I'm like, no, just stop, just no.
At this point, you're like, just leave it alone. It was fine, but like, we need to stop. It's like when I read a book series and it ends, and then the author just keeps writing extra stuff. I'm like, could just stop? No, you're gonna ruin it. Someone
Yeah, I
keeps
mean, I go
messing
I
with
go
a
I go
recipe
both
and they
ways
keep
with
adding extra
these.
spices.
Yeah, I go both ways on that because I think there's times of books you write it and they're just done, right? That's fine. But then I'm you know I didn't get to mine, but I'm 17 books into a series that there's multiple plots it could have stopped, but you know these worlds familiar, and I like revisiting the world and the people in it and the extension of it. So I think there's that.
If they can do
Um,
it, Scott, if they could keep the
yeah,
story going, keeping it fresh, and that's the thing is, I mean, if you could sustain a ongoing series without it becoming stale, or it's just like the writer has a contract to write so many books, it's like, can this story keep going? If it can keep going, great, keep telling it. But if it,
yeah.
sometimes there's a time to stop.
Well, you know the other thing with we're talking about remakes. Like I think back to the original Battlestar Galactica and then Ron D. Moore's Battlestar Galactica, and hands down that was a fantastic remake. You
Agreed.
know, and I've only watched a few episodes of the original, but arguably even better than the original.
I would agree with that too.
And so I think there are times they do get it right when they
The exception can
when
prove the rule, though.
right, but yeah.
I mean, I think it's a really difficult to do a remake better than the first. Um, you know, and sometimes the original just was objectively not good. I think anyone can watch the original Dune movie and agree this was not the best adaptation of this material. You watched the new one that just came out, parts 1 and 2. Oh, I told someone, I was like, listen, you can watch Dune 1 just for the cinematography alone. And the
Right.
soundtrack, just Chef's Kiss, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It is a beautifully made movie. It is an adaptation done correctly. Um, Same with Lord of the Rings. You watch the original Lord of the Rings cartoon adaptation, and you're like, what is this crap?
They were
Um,
puffing some stuff, that's for sure.
Listen, a lot of something. Um, the one that Peter Jackson did, absolutely amazing. The Hobbit, complete shit, both of them. Well,
All
the
three of
original
them.
cartoon, crap. The whatever that was, absolute crap. If they wanted to come out and do like a new adaptation of The Hobbit, I would be there 100%. Um, so in some ways, I'm like, listen, if it just didn't do the original justice, scrap it, retry. It's really really hard to do a remake well. Um, and if the original is really really good, then at the same time, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So
There's a
Yeah.
Japanese anime that I think they did improve on. An exception. Um, I, I enjoyed Star Blazers back in the '80s. It's based the Japanese version is called Space Battleship Yamato. Back in 2010, company in Japan uh, did a reimagining of it, and I think that one they respected the original source material but improved upon it. I thought they the first one, I mean, it's space opera, and but this one is a lot more character driven, um, more female characters. Just I thought that was an improvement upon the original. There's very few exceptions where you can say that, but I think in the case of Space Battleship Yamato, I think that's where the reimagining retelling was an improvement.
was it like a complete reimagining retelling, or is like kind of like how we keep seeing the Seven Samurai being retold in different perspectives? Because that also, at a certain point, so many retellings just becomes a trope. Um,
They took the original concept, I mean, but it is a retelling because you had '70s Japanese animation for its time was cutting edge, but it doesn't. I mean, visually, I mean, what we're doing today in the last 20 years looks a lot better. So it is a retelling and reimagining, but they respected the original concept. They built on that. They used most of the original characters,
okay.
but
Yeah.
but where they improved upon was that they did better storytelling as far as making it more character driven. And this was the 70s, so there wasn't many female roles. They balanced it more with more female characters in this version.
Okay. I'm digging it.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, what do you think then? Like, how would you interpret like a series like Doctor Who, where what they do is they keep rebranding the Doctor, like every few years there's a new Doctor, and the story, it's not a retelling per se, but it continues, and then they bring characters in from the old. I mean, this series has been going on over 60 years, right? So
I mean, that's such a unique like form of storytelling because they make. I think like they're very. I like that they're very upfront where this is not a remake of the original or of the thing that we did before. This is simply a almost like accepted fan fiction, like reimagining of the character in a different I don't say like timeline reiteration. This is like it's a different thing. And I don't mind when like if a marketing company is very like campaign or whatever you want to call it is very upfront where this is not going to be this thing that you just had. It's going to be a little different. It's going to have like same kind of concept and storytelling. It's just a reimagining of a different version of this thing. That's fine. Kind of like if you get a comic book and you're like, this is Spider-Man in a different universe. You know upfront what you're getting. But if you tell me this is a remake of something that I love and then you don't do the things, I'm gonna have a lot of negative feelings about it. So just maybe that's really what it comes down to for me as a fan. If you are gonna tell me that you're gonna give me chocolate cake, and I get really excited for chocolate cake, and then you decide to give me chocolate cake, but then add like other things to it, like peanut butter. I may love peanut butter, but if I was peanut butter and chocolate together, but if I was expecting pure chocolate and you give me chocolate and peanut butter, I'm gonna have some feelings about the fact that you lied to me and told me I was getting a really rich dark chocolate cake. I'm just look at Dave. I'm just saying, like, I may like the peanut butter cake or the peanut butter and chocolate. I love peanut butter and chocolate. But you better be upfront with me that I'm getting peanut butter and chocolate. Don't tell me I'm getting peanut butter and strawberries or peanut butter and caramel and then switch it out with peanut butter and chocolate. I'm not going to be happy because I'm going to be like, you done lied to me. And then you're going to think that I don't like peanut butter and chocolate. But I do like peanut butter and chocolate.
Welcome to the Sci-Fi Diner cooking
one
show.
Thing, give me another thing.
Just stay away from it, period, because it's not good for you.
At the Sci-Fi Diner, I serve up exactly what I'm saying I'm going to serve. If it's black coffee with cream, I'm not going to add extra flavors to it, okay? There's not going to be a surprise when your waitress comes with her coffee.
So, Dave, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Regarding this topic. We often bust on you about the Star Trek Kelvin timeline. And rightly so. I mean, there's, especially for the nostalgia, the movies came out, they looked sleek, and they were upfront that this is a different timeline. It's different. It's Kelvin timeline. It's not the same timeline. They rebuild the characters, change them up a little bit, and made it a more balanced crew.
Arguably.
These movies for you didn't work in part because of the nostalgia factor and the fact that this is something that you grew up loving and it was a certain way and they were changing it and perhaps messing a little bit with some stuff that was considered to be canon in the regular universe. What for you makes a movie that arguably was well done movie wise not work for you? And I'm not trying to bust your balls here. I'm being honest here. I want to actually hear your thoughts on it. Because that's a reboot. That's like a remake, right? A reboot. They weren't disguising the fact that they were doing this.
Correct. So get ready because this goes beyond the level of sci-fi here. My giant problem with reboots like that, like the specific example of Star Trek. It was unnecessary. You have such a vast just a vast universe to play in, to invent, to create, to be as original as you can, but yet you chose to go back to established, loved characters and mess with them, redo them. Well, you don't need to do that. And I've noticed that a lot with a lot of things, not only just in sci-fi, but in culture entirely. And nostalgia, maybe you can call it that or whatever, but really, what is that? I look at something and it reminds me of something happy or something sad, a better time, perhaps. I have a painting in my house that we got from my in-laws when they moved, and it's an Amish farm, basically. It's a painting of an Amish, a house, the barn, a horse and buggy going across and everything like that. The first time I went down to visit their house, I saw this painting, and I was just stood there and stared at it and looked at it for like 5 minutes. It's nothing impressive, but it reminds me of almost identically to the place my family had up in northern PA that my dad had bought before he died, that we all would go up to. We'd spend time up there. And it was one of those things that just kind of, it would just always bring me back to it. So they gave it to us and we hung it in the house. And we tend to take those things that would trigger a memory or touch a feeling, remind us of a happy time or happy place, and we have to twist it. We have to damage it and destroy it in certain ways. Because if we're reminded of something better, we won't tolerate the not good today. And too much of and this is where it's going to get really deep and it's completely out of sci-fi territory, but too much of our culture focuses on that which is negative, which is not healthy and beneficial for society, and we glorify it and we bring it up. Even look at our modern art. It's abstract. It's a lot of it is just pieces of junk thrown together and welded up as a statue. It resembles nothing. It reminds you of nothing. And it's supposed to be that way. It's what we're going to, because we don't want to be reminded of it. You go to certain museums, and I forget exactly where it was. I wish I had the article still if I was prepared for it. There's a museum in England or Ireland or somewhere over there where they have trigger warning tags and signs on some of these paintings of the old rolling countrysides in England, because they're worried that it's going to remind people back to a day where it was simpler, things were nice, and they have to feel the need to warn you that this could trigger that out of there. Well, what's the point of that? Why would you need a warning for that? That's what it's supposed to do. But we have to destroy it. We have to warn you about it, because you feeling that way might not be a good thing. So cycle back to the Star Trek thing.
Maybe they should have warning labels on the Star Trek Kelvin timeline.
Well, they should. They should. I mean, it's a complete trigger for me. For some unbeknownst reason.
If you are a die-hard fan and you walk into any sort of remake, it is a trigger warning.
Yeah.
That is just what it is.
Yeah. But, there are certain things that, I mean, like, take the instance of Battlestar Galactica, like the original series of that. I own it. I've watched it multiple times. It sucks. Like, it's 1960s, 70s, whatever it is, just cheap, B-rated sci-fi stuff. A great concept, but it wasn't written and wasn't produced to an extent that we would find it acceptable now. I get remaking that. And the story they were able to tell through it was completely different than what the original was. So, more of a reimagining, like you said, but they did it well. They didn't try to manipulate and change things that way. I mean, they only had a season in the original. It wasn't it wasn't as established as something like Star Trek was.
Right. Yeah.
But that was my rant.
Yeah, no, and I hear that. I guess the flip side of that, what we're getting in Star Trek today in the series, and some of them we like Strange New Worlds, or Discovery, maybe not so much, or Lower Decks, or Prodigy, right? We're getting all at Picard.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting all these series in part because the JJ verse existed, right? Because these did well enough that CBS said, well, people are still interested in Star Trek. Let's begin to put out content that actually, but keep it in the original timeline. There is an argument that these movies did have merit, even though they may have not been
whether it would
best reimaginings.
Whether all the new stuff we have is because of or in spite of.
Right.
I can't.
Who knows?
Can't
right?
tell. Who knows? But yeah, you're right.
CBS might know, but
well, they'll never talk.
But yeah. So Chrissy, we hijacked when you were sharing. Did you have anything else to share about your sci-fi world? It was a great discussion.
No. I think that it I liked that it sparked the discussion that it did on remakes and things. I think it's something that we keep coming back to as a theme of why do some remakes work? Why do some of them don't work? What does it do for one person versus another? And sometimes it's about respecting, and sometimes it's well, what's the point? And if you wanted to tell that kind of a story, did you need to do it as a remake, or even in this universe, why couldn't you just go make your own story? I feel very much about that with some of the new Star Wars movies, is I feel like if you wanted to tell this kind of a story in a science fiction world, go make your own. You don't need to ruin something that I like. You don't need to go in and mess around with this stuff. You could have just gone and done your own thing. That's fine. And I probably would have actually enjoyed it and liked it better because you wouldn't have done it sacrificing something that I love. And I feel like maybe that's kind of also what Dave is feeling like. It's if you wanted to tell this kind of a story or this version of it, you could have done that in your own original universe, in your own original thing. And I would have loved it. And it would have been great. And I would have been so excited to see a new thing. But instead, you did it at the expense of something else. So instead of expanding something, you took something I liked, chopped it all up, and then made it a different thing. That's, I love cats. I love all three of my cats. I don't want someone to come in, chop up one of my cats, and make a new cat. I want that cat and a new cat.
Franken-kitty.
Frank.
Especially when you're talking about chopping up cats and we're in a diner, doesn't mix.
We're not a Chinese restaurant, folks.
Welcome to Shitty Walk.
May not want to eat here tonight. Just saying, may not want to eat here.
Listen, I will tell you exactly what you're getting.
The cat.
I just said that. Don't chop something up and make a Frankenstein version of it. Just make a new thing, and I will be 100% there. So
yeah,
anyway.
Very good. Well, Dave, let's jump to you. What's going on in your science fiction universe?
Oh well, since last we had one of these things, there honestly really hasn't been too crazy much. I did end up, I don't know if I ever shared it on here or not, I did get a copy of Firefly the Game, their 20-something anniversary edition, which is every single expansion they ever made for it in one box. A beautiful neoprene playmat that has all of them together, just one big one. All the minis, all the minis are painted. Some new material in it that they made specifically for this thing, which is pretty cool. But I mean, it came in this. It came in one box. It has every token and everything has a tray, a little organizer with it, all built in. It's probably the most impressive board game I've ever purchased. But that was pretty cool. Got that a little while back. I had rewatched Star Trek: The Original Series and the original 6 movies. I don't know how I got started on it, but I just started and never stopped.
Classic.
Yep, good stuff there. Last weekend I got into, I don't know how I ended up down the rabbit hole, but had some free time and went on a movie marathon watching binge. I started with V for Vendetta. I hadn't watched that in a while. And ended it with all four of the Hunger Games movies. Rewatching those. I think I was on a anti-establishment, anti-tyrannical kind of government kick when I started going through all these.
I mean, who hasn't when they watch V for Vendetta?
Exactly.
Another example of a movie that needs no modern adaptation. Just leave it. It is
not at all.
Do not remake this movie.
Do not remake it.
Don't touch it. It's fine. It's perfect.
Perfectly fine. And then me and the boys have been playing Helldivers 2. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that. It is probably one of my favorite games now. It's all cooperative. Like, unlike Call of Duty when you're playing online and everybody's playing against each other and all that stuff, this is entirely cooperative. You are bringing democracy to the galaxy, one dead bug or automaton at a time. It is as campy as Starship Troopers ever was. Just the opening credit videos of it. Look it up on YouTube because I know they're all out there. It is just campy as anything. It is so funny. But it's
a book I recently read. Good book, Starship
Troopers.
Yes, good stuff.
The the opening credit video of the thing looks like it came out of the movie. It could have been a thing for that.
I'm doing my part. I'm doing my part.
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. It's pretty much how it goes.
The meme is I ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
I love that meme.
But it's a very challenging game, and it's a lot of fun. When I've been with them, I've been playing. There's a new South Park game that just came out on PlayStation yesterday, or I think it's playable today. That I have downloaded, ready to play.
Game.
Yeah.
What?
Oh yeah, I just played the last two that have been released, and they were just hilarious. Because I have a twisted sense of humor.
I love your twisted sense of humor. That's the main reason I stick around.
Oh well, there you go.
There you go.
So yeah, that's really been about it.
Yeah, very good.
Snow day.
Well, in my sci-fi world, I've been continuing whenever I shared last, I've been talking about the Dresden Files, and I'm at book 17. I've read 19 books, and this is the last book in the series, and I'm getting near the end. I don't know if he's going to put any more out, but they did kill off one of the main characters, and so he could potentially end it here and not write another one. And but who knows? Urban fantasy, and I've absolutely thoroughly enjoyed revisiting that character again and again and again. No regrets. And literally, I started the series probably last May. So, got through, and there were some other books in there that I did read, but I got through those books in that amount of time, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So I do not regret it at all.
Good.
Next up on my docket is the Three Body Problem, which I am watching currently, the Netflix series, and we, I guess, are talking about doing that for our next show, reviewing the Netflix series. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that, but I'm enjoying the mystique of it. And it is, and you're trying to figure out what's actually going on. And I think that's there's a mystery. I'm feeling like I'm a little bit in the X-Files, not with maybe with aliens, but it's just a interesting series. I'm only 2.5 episodes in, so I don't know how it ends.
Does the series follow all 3 books or just the first one?
So I do not know. I did very little reading about it, so you have to tell me it when you watch it. But I'm enjoying it because I've not read the book, so I do want to read the book because I'm enjoying this so much. I heard about the book like 1.5 years ago from a friend of mine, from Tyler Lloyd, a mutual friend, and just really enjoyed him talking about it. And then when the series came out, I'm like, I'll give this a try. When he described it, I think he did a pretty piss poor job describing it to me. So I was like, oh well, it sounds kind of interesting. Don't know if I'll read it. But then I'm watching the series. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to read the book now because it was because I think the series is pretty well done. It has Wong in it, from the actor that plays Wong in Doctor Strange.
Cool.
Is in it as one of the main characters, and some other characters, some other actors that you kind of recognize from things. But it's a really, really good series. So that's been what I've been currently doing. Kiefer and I are still casually rewatching the Matt Smith Doctor Who, and see what else I am watching. I'm watching a lot of League of Legends still. Maybe that's about it. Yeah, I think that pretty well captures. I haven't seen Dune 2 yet, and I know that's a travesty. I really should have seen Dune 2. I'm a huge lover of the Dune franchise. Did a podcast on Dune for years, and then I'm not.
I forgot it was even out.
Yeah, so I saw it was out, and apparently has made a ton of movie, like more movie, I think maybe than the first one. I don't
Good.
know, I could be wrong about that, but it was like it's like past the 500 million mark, and
That doesn't entirely surprise me because I think the first movie was released on both streaming platform and movie theaters because people, I guess, were still. I mean, it was still pandemic-y ish.
Oh, you might have been right.
Mm-hmm.
You might be right about that.
Because it came out like what, two years ago?
Yeah. And this one was delayed because of the writer's strike, so it made it seem even longer. I want to say it was like 2.5 years ago. You're right. I think it came out in November.
Pandemic just took 2020 to 2020, like 223, and just kind of squished all those years together in my brain.
Yeah.
Like, it's just nice little pancake. So I have no idea when anything came out or what happened between those 3 years.
Yeah, so something, right? Something happened. But well,
it was 2021.
No, well, really? See, just
Yeah, so it was still
Thank
it was
God
still
for
very
Google.
pandemic-y at the time, I believe. So yeah, and still has an 8 out of 10 IMDb, 83% Rotten Tomatoes, 74% Metacritic, which I think
we always agree with all those assessments. But
Every time.
I am known to be agreeable with all assessments. We are.
Right.
I am such a sweet,
Bullshit.
agreeable person.
Right.
I am known for that.
Right. With a healthy dose of salt. Healthy dose of salt.
You know, sweet and salty. You know,
Yeah.
it's just my.
Well, Miles, I know we've gone a little bit long here, but let's talk a little bit. You had some things that are coming down the pike that you wanted to at least briefly touch on.
Yeah, so we don't do all of them, but
pick your highlights. Pick your highlights.
let's the Acolyte, the Star Wars The Acolyte. That's coming out.
I'm looking forward to it, but any Star Wars series that comes out, I'm always looking forward to.
And I'm always salty about.
Well, so like this one, maybe, you know, I thought initially, Dave, were you and I having this conversation about how long ago this was taking place?
Yeah.
I thought for some reason it was taking place 1,000 years in the past. It goes, I think it's like only like 100 or 130 years in the past.
Still.
Was that right, Dave?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah,
still.
So something like that. So it's not as far back as I was hoping it would be. Still, like, we're getting out of the Skywalker verse, and we're going to like pre-Skywalker. Maybe Palpatine's running around, Yoda's running around, but I feel like this gives some room for some good storytelling material, and plus it has Trinity in it, and who doesn't want to see Trinity kicking ass and taking names? Come on.
Exactly. This is exactly what I was talking about, like with Star Trek as a comparison. You're getting into the High Republic era here. Between that, the Old Republic era, that's where you could be doing all kinds of amazing things. I mean, even just take the storyline from Star Wars: The Old Republic video game and put it in a movie. That is going to be better than freaking anything that they've put out in quite a long while. So, I am really looking forward to this, for simply because it is all in a part of that timeline that we've never explored before, outside of novelization.
We all know how I feel about the novels.
Well,
Great.
yeah.
Dear to my heart. But
Yeah.
you know.
So like I'm definitely this is so the trailer, which you can never tell anything from of how good it's going to be, shows some promise. I know there's been arguments that some people said, well, the Star Wars series has been kind of lackluster, but there's been I've been entertained and have thoroughly enjoyed them, and with the exception of maybe Boba Fett, and even Boba Fett had some redeeming parts to it. I don't know.
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm not as well versed on literary verse as you guys are, but I see this. I'm intrigued.
The only thing that would make it better is if they had Russell Watson write the theme song for it. Yeah, I think he would do great. I mean, he wrote the theme song for Enterprise.
I knew you were going there. I knew that name.
Throw it right in, and Faith in the Heart, right? Bring it on. They need a song like Faith in the Heart.
Read between the lines.
If Chrissy's eyes were swords, we'd all be dead.
Got the force in my heart.
Only me.
Miles, I do not hold you responsible for Scott's actions.
Thanks.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So, but
You
that's
were
coming
saved
out-
from my wrath.
I'm just saying to look, but
Dave is clearly a though, so I mean, because he started singing it.
I've got the force in my heart.
I'm getting a copy of Death Note, and I'm maybe writing your name in it. If you can do anything. I'm just saying.
Please, you'll be doing me a favor.
Yeah.
There may be consequences, sir.
Yeah. So June 4th is when the Acolyte drops, and we'll have to do a show on that. And that one I think will be dropping episodic, as Disney tends to drop theirs episodic. So we're looking for that. Miles, how about we're finally getting Star Trek Discovery coming back?
Yeah, so Discovery is going to drop its last season next week, April the 4th. So it's good. It's done. I'm glad it's not ending abruptly. It's going to get a chance to finish the story out, and I've had some good things to say about Discovery. I've had some bad things to say about Discovery. 5 seasons. It's a good run. They're talking about doing a Starfleet Academy spin-off from Discovery. I was kind of hoping I like the idea of a Starfleet Academy show, but I would have preferred it more in the I'll call it the common era, either the next gen or 23rd century. But that's the next thing that's on the pike for them. So, but yeah, we're getting a little Star Trek soon. What I'm looking for,
I like that you said it's on the pike being.
I see what you did there, Scott.
No, I see what you did there. But anyways, go ahead.
What I was trying to find, show I'm really looking forward to seeing is season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy. It already dropped in France for whatever reason. It hasn't dropped here yet, and so. But that's the animated show with Admiral Janeway and her, those near-do-wells they found in the Gamma Quadrant that helped.
Near-do-wells.
So, Dave, I wanted to know your thoughts. I know that you haven't been notoriously a Discovery fan as such, and maybe that speaks for you as well, Miles. But how do you feel about Discovery getting a chance to wrap up? I know that you watched the series despite not being your favorite for many reasons. How do you feel about 5th season coming back? Are you excited about it? Are you excited to see where they end it? Are you?
I do want to see how they end it. I do. I mean, they could either. they could redeem themselves and end on a high note, or they can flame out like their great dilithium burn of the last season or so. You know, it's hard to tell, but again, it carries the Star Trek moniker, so I'm going to watch it. Might be hate watching it at times, but I'm gonna watch it.
Don't hate watch things. You're only rewarding their negative behavior with views.
Yes, but I'm a completionist
matter,
as
it's
well.
done.
I'm gonna go over there with a squirt bottle, and every time you hate watch something, I'm just gonna be like, "Bad, stop!" Like your cat on my counter.
Listen,
Don't hate watch things. You're rewarding their negative behavior.
but my completionist mentality will not let me
No.
not watch it
No.
because
You
I could
need
be
to-
wrong.
Look, Chrissy, whatever's on your plate, you need to finish it, right?
Exactly.
This is how we develop eating disorders. Okay.
No, it's
This is why America's so obese. Just saying.
well, no, it's because we put too much on our plate, not because we finish our plate. But
Okay.
We also
yeah,
put
I mean,
things in our food we shouldn't.
well, there is plenty of that as well.
This metaphor applies to Star Trek Discovery as well.
Correct.
Putting
Ab-
stuff in the plate that shouldn't be there.
Exactly.
Exactly correct. Exactly correct. Because again, like I said earlier, we have to try to destroy that which is beautiful already. So, but
I love our few metaphors this evening. I've gone from like chocolate peanut butter cake, chocolate strawberry cake, dismembered cats.
Right.
escalated quickly. No, so I mean, I'm interested to see how they finish it out and see what happens at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, they're far in the future. Let's see what happens this final year. Arguably, it's still a well done show. It's just there's some arguments about it feeling like not Star Trek. So,
right.
But,
And at least
Miles, are you? I know that you're a huge Star Trek fan. How are you feeling about Discovery coming back?
I'm looking forward to it cautiously. When Dave mentioned the dilithium burn, I that storyline. So I'm hoping that I echo Dave's thoughts that they'll redeem it and end it well. Look, it was a first live action Star Trek TV show in almost 15 years, so I'm grateful for that. But yeah, I'll definitely be there when it drops, and it has Star Trek on, so I will watch it.
Another person who's rewarding negative behavior.
I know, right?
I'm not hate watching it though. It's like I'm looking for things to like about it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I'll complain later.
Right. So,
and at least
Chrissy, what they're saying is that you can put any show out there and just put the word Star Trek on it, and they'll watch it. That's what they're saying.
at least for a little
And
bit.
this is why they keep getting crappy shit. If they simply wouldn't reward the behavior, the studios would get the message and not.
To be fair.
To be fair,
Discovery started out, and then we got like Picard, which I thought was better, and then we got out of Picard came Strange New Worlds, which was actually that came out of Discovery.
Yes.
Came out of Discovery, and Strange New Worlds has been fantastic. So it has rewarding it has resulted in some good things, arguably.
So you're saying that them rewarding their negative behavior has rewarded us with other things? I'm not entirely buying it, but whatever you
true.
need to tell
but
yourself.
this was true.
Whatever helps you sleep at night.
Listen, don't reward negative behavior. It's 50 plus, 60 plus years of research. We don't reward negative behavior. B.F. Skinner knew when he was talking about it, okay? There are consequences, and sometimes the studios and their executives need to have a nice time out to think about what they've done.
And they got that because they realized this show is not doing well. And instead of pulling an Enterprise and just cutting it and making you sit through a horribly mashed together finale, they're actually trying to close it out decently, which I'm happy for. Complete it.
Maybe they're finally learning their lesson.
Well, maybe.
That they need to stop being crappy people.
Well,
Yeah.
I still think that we should just go to the source And anytime they're about to do something stupid, I should be able to sit there with a squirt bottle and squirt them and say no. But I also think that about I should just be able to sit there, and every time they say something really stupid, I should just be able to be like, no, bad senator, try again. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
I volunteer. Like, I don't need an elected representative. I just want to sit there with a squirt bottle, and whenever they say something really stupid, be able to squirt them and tell them to try again.
So you'd get bored and
That's
just start
the service I
squirting
want
for the
to
heck
do
of it.
America. And if they say something good, give them a treat, like chocolate.
Very good.
I'm just saying, I would do that service for America.
Yeah.
Bad president. Try again. It doesn't even matter if they're Democrat, Republican, whatever it is. Just if you say something really stupid.
I wish I could do that to my students.
What's stopping you?
Well, I did want to keep my job for at least another year.
I got squirt bottles. I'll just put water in it.
Yeah.
We're not assaulting them with like
Better
acid
yet,
or something.
you
It's fine.
fill it with water, but put it in one of the bottles that the cleaning sprays in.
Yeah.
So they don't know the difference. I just grab it and squirt them and see the reaction.
You know what?
Exactly.
It'd be great. Our
Just
stuff.
Take like a sledgehammer to like their favorite Stanley Cup. It will be fine.
Yeah.
Look at his face.
Oh my. Well, Miles, are there anything here you want to hit? Or we hit? I think we hit like a fair amount of this, and some of this I know that.
Yeah. One more real quick. I don't think it'll spawn too much discussion, but The Boys on Prime. I'm looking forward to that coming back. That's coming back April 12th.
It's a series I have not watched.
I gotta catch up. I did
I'm
season
ashamed of
1.
myself, but I do like it.
What's good?
These people are horrible.
I don't think that I made it much past this. Yeah, I think at the time that I tried watching it, it was almost like too close to some of the stuff that I was dealing with in my job, and I was just like, no, I can't. Just like for a really long time, I could not watch any family dramas. Anytime it had anything with families, I was like, nope, too close to my family-based thing. I can't. It's too much like work. So maybe I wonder how I would feel about it if I tried watching it now.
You should.
I don't know.
I should try it and see.
Yeah.
Because sometimes
Very
like you're
good.
just in a place where you're like, I can't watch this kind of the stuff.
Oh, sure.
Depending on like,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, just depending on like what's going on in your personal life, your work life, whatever it is.
Oh, I agree. There's a lot of. I find that realistic dramas I really struggle with because of just connections to things that I know, and I make. That's why fantasy and science fiction feels kind of safe to me, the storytelling wise.
Yeah.
But well, speaking of superhero type, stories like The Boys, we had a chance to encounter, and it was like one of the last things we did at Farpoint. We had a chance to sit down or stand and talk with Cal Dodd. Dave, do you want to tell us a little bit about Cal Dodd here and just how that interview came about?
It was pretty impromptu, if I remember right.
Well, we were courting him like when I say like we were trying to get the interview like I don't know all afternoon.
Yeah.
And I kept going back, and the handlers were great. They were just doing their job, but they were talking to his representative and going back and forth, looking at our page, making sure we were legit. Like this happened for like 2 or 3 hours before we finally, let's do the interview.
Yeah. And then
I love how you said like you had to court him as if like you had to go ask his father permission to like seek his hand.
It's actually not too far from the truth though.
Yeah.
And then he had to like investigate you to make sure like you were legitimate for his daughter before allowing you the opportunity.
But it was worth it because he talked for a good bit.
10-15 minutes.
10-15 minutes at least, I think.
Yeah, we had a nice long interview with him.
Yeah. And then as we finished up, he decided to tell another story about that was when he met Hugh Jackman, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we didn't have to give like a goat in exchange for this.
No.
For this.
We did not.
I mean, you guys must have had struck hell of a bargain to not have to give any goats or land or things in order to get this dowry going.
But he was entertaining to talk to. I mean, he was fun. It was a little loud around there, so I don't know how much of it I actually was really able to hear firsthand there. But
you'll definitely hear that it was a con.
Yeah,
no doubt about
it.
Yeah, but he was. It was a pretty fantastic interview, and of course, Miles, as you said earlier, he is the original voice of X-Men, and for those of us who grew up with the animated series, there's a lot of nostalgia here.
Because I heard him talking there during the end, I'm like, I don't recognize this guy. And then he started doing the Wolverine voice, and I was like, oh, that's him.
Yep.
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I might be terrible with names and faces, but as soon as someone speaks, I'm like, oh, I know that voice.
Yeah, absolutely. That was him. So we're going to bring this interview to you from Farpoint 2024, and kudos to all the staff there. They really worked hard to get us all our interviews, but this was one where that they really went to bat for us, and they were just fantastic. So if you ever get a chance to go to Farpoint, highly encourage it. Smaller con, was at a newer location, which I wasn't sure I liked at first, but all in all, it was a good day experience there for us.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So here, we're going to share this interview with Cal Dodd, and then we'll be back.
Sci-fi fans, we're at Farpoint 2024, and we're hanging out with Mr. Cal Dodd, a prolific voice actor as well as a versatile singer and recording artist. Mr. Dodd's recent work can be seen and heard in the very popular Paw Patrol. X-Men fans know and love him for voicing Wolverine. Mr. Dodd, welcome and thank you for taking time to talk to us on the Sci-Fi Diner podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's great to meet you, sir. So one thing that's very evident in all the projects and work you've done is that you are very versatile in your voice talents, from Wolverine to Donko Dorkovich. Can you tell us when you saw that you had a real talent for not just singing but voice acting?
I wouldn't describe it as voice acting. I describe it as that when I was a child, I just loved impersonating people. And it made my dad laugh, so that made me feel like, well, finally he likes something I do. Because all we did was sing. I mean, not all we did, but the whole family were singers from the age of 5. We came over from Ireland, and we toured as a family singing. But this was a different thing, doing voices, and I would do a great impersonation of Jerry Lewis, and try and do John Wayne, and those kind of things, kind of voices, whatever, that made my dad laugh. So, and I kept, and cartoon characters like, that's all, whatever, just imitating. That's awesome. And Popeye, cartoons and stuff, like, and just doing voices. But I never had the chance to use them because all I was doing was singing jingles and commercials, from bras to beer, cornflakes, 2 scoops of raisins in a package of Kellogg's Raisin Bran, and great, which I ended up doing for a while. But everything was singing, and great, and I loved that because that's all I was great at singing. And this came out of nowhere, the X-Men thing. Okay. They remembered me from a commercial I did for Chrysler when there was like 5 of us singing, and they said it's like a drill sergeant marching with their soldiers, and he's like, who's got all the 4x4s? Chrysler's got the 4x4s. Round up, sound up. And they said, who can do the sergeant voice? And someone said, well, Cal probably. So I did it. And the person that's casting for X-Men, a year and a half later, Karen Gora, remembered that voice. She was asking for Wolverine on. So I just Wolverine said, Cal, would you be interested? I know you've never done this stuff before. Maybe doing an animated series character. And it's like, what? I'd love to do something, an animated cartoon. Everyone wants to do a cartoon.
Right, of course.
What's it for? She said, well, I can't tell you. It's a secret audition, and it's called Audition X. X.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, great. So we went through that, and I went to the audition, and the rest is history.
Did you have any idea at all that the X stood for X-Men?
No, hell no. I didn't know who the X-Men were. Well, we walked in, who are the X-Men? And we're all Canadians. The voices are all Canadian.
Right.
And we're in Toronto, and these people flew in from LA and New York, the writers and producers. And that's a funny story about the audition. Was they gave me a line. I said, well, who do you? They showed me this picture, and they said he's 5'3", tough as nails, will defend his friends to the death if necessary, and he's cranky. I said, oh, great, cranky. And so I said, well, who do you hear him sounding like? And they said, Clint Eastwood, of course, was the first name. And I went, okay, yeah. I needed to get gravel in it. So they mentioned Steve McQueen as well, and I love that reference later on when I got to know him in Stick Wolverine, because he was short, Steve McQueen, and was always very quiet, didn't say much, kept his feelings inside like Wolverine does. And Lord Bond, which I didn't understand, and then I came up with Wolfman Jack from, remember, a Midnight Special, Wolfman Jack, baby, coming at you. Is it disc jockey? Famous
Yeah, I
disc jockey?
remember. Oh yeah, Wolfman Jack. Yeah.
That was the last thing I did before I read the first line. And this is funny because they said the first. I said, so who's this? I said, wait a minute. So I'm Wolverine. So that's why my edition said yes. I said, and this line that I'm going to read is who's that addressed to? Because it's he's got to be yelling and vicious. And Clint Eastwood never yells. I've never heard him yell in a movie. He's always contained, like punk. So he said, well, he's yelling at his mortal enemy, Sabretooth. And I said, in all seriousness, Sabretooth. And I'm Wolverine. Is this an animal cartoon? Seriously, I said, is this an animal cartoon? Are we like animals? He said, they laughed like you did, and then they said, no. I said, well, why that name? He said, they're mutants. As if I'm supposed to get that. He said, well, that clears everything up. What the hell is a mutant? I said, explain that, and I went, oh, jeez. Okay. So they said, okay, are you ready to read the line? I said, oh, sure. And this is the first line I read. And I'll never forget it. All right, you egg-sucking piece of gutter trash. You always did like shoving around people shorter than you. Well, I'm shorter. Try shoving me. Ow! Well, their jaws all dropped, hit the table, and was like, holy crap. Give him more lines. So I read for the next 10 minutes, different lines, including the one that, from a Definite Steal, one of our episodes, from when Wolverine busts through the door at the Hellfire Club with both these claws on, and saying the lines directly from Clint Eastwood's mouth that we got away with using in the series. Excuse me for this.
No,
and the line was, he's looking at the guy who's got a gun pointed right at him, and Wolverine walks very slowly towards him and says, all right, you egg-sucking piece of gutter trash. You always did like shoving around. No, I just did that. Oh, I got it. Sorry, wrong scene.
All right.
So he busts through the door and looks at the guy and walks very slowly towards him and says, I know what you're thinking, punk. Question is, can I get Wolverine before he turns me into shish kebab with those claws? Well, bud, seeing as how these claws are adamantium, the strongest metal known, and can slice through vanadium steel like a hot knife through butter and you gotta ask yourself, do I feel lucky?
That's awesome.
And they just went, get out of here. Get out now. I said, okay, and they phoned me the next morning.
That's awesome.
And it was just, would you like to be our Wolverine? I said, let me just check my calendar. Yes. 5 beautiful years, wonderful years with that dude.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let's talk about your sample. You have a CD out. I was listening to some of your music on your website. Do you have a CD out that fans can get their hands on?
That they can get their hands on?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think they can get it.
Okay.
They can get it through me, through caldodd.com.
Okay. I was listening to some of your music and.
Yeah, it's big band stuff.
Yeah.
Since I sing, that's not indicative of where I sit, but because I love all kinds of music, but I do love a lot of the songs on that CD. Like I cover what's her name? That last. What's her name? Beautiful. I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Anyway,
James?
it'll come to me. Huh?
Etta James?
Yes, thank you. Yeah. At last, my love is coming on. And I did it on the album. And
Okay.
Summertime, and it's all songs that I like. And then big band, Frank Sinatra kind of tunes and stuff.
Yeah.
That they wanted me to. These guys are the best musicians on the planet. Like they were just. And I've worked with them for 30 years. And they said, come on, you got to do a CD of this kind of music. We'd love to play with you. Guido Basso, and it's just stupid players. Doug Riley, and so that's like 10 years ago now.
But they can get that on your
Yeah,
website.
yes, they can.
Listeners, check out Mr. Dodd's music. It's incredible. I enjoy listening. I want to get a CD for myself.
Yeah, and I'm on Facebook, and since COVID started, about March 20th it started, like we're all told, okay, this is a pandemic, March 20th. So I was originally singing to a goose up in next door, garage next door, who laid a Canada goose that laid her eggs, and I started singing to her, like feeding her, because they don't move out of the nest for a month. And the male shows up about once a week. Nice guy. And you know, she hatches them and stuff, and then I have to call the wildlife control because they can't get down off this big roof, the little ones. It was great. And I named her, and I named the little one. I named her Gilda. And the first two little ones I named Gilligan and Gidget. The two little ones. Anyway, so, and it's sad. I mean, we bring them back down the ravine, where I live on a ravine, down into the river down there. And but sure enough, next year, back again, realized in the same place, Gilda, you ever gonna learn? Anyway, the folks were writing in on Facebook and saying, I know you love Gilda and stuff, but can we see you when you're singing? Because I had great tracks. Since then, so I started doing that. I'm now at songs number 2020, I think, that I posted on Facebook with like rock and roll. I mean, I love rock and Billy Joel stuff. And like my little brother Rory sang with Bonnie Tyler, Total Eclipse of the Heart.
Yeah, I love this song.
Turn around, turn around. That's my little brother. And with Billy Joel, he sang on Uptown Girl with him. And James Taylor, he's like the lead background singer. Him and Eric Troyer, and two guys, like great singers.
Yeah.
So it's in the family.
It is in the family.
So you're still busy voice acting. Can you tell us what's new on the horizon for you? Is there something new we can look forward to seeing or hearing you in soon? What can we be plugging for you? New projects?
Disney Plus. The Wolfman. The Wolverine, starring Wolverine, the X-Men new series in hopefully March 24th.
That's fantastic.
So that's coming out.
Nothing else other than that.
That's coming out in a month then, about?
Yeah.
March 24th. Awesome. That's awesome. Good.
Mr. Dodd, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking with you.
Very, very welcome.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's great to meet you.
Okay, thanks, bud.
We gotta get you some water.
Huh?
We gotta get you some water in your coffee. Oh, okay.
In the year 2000, shooting the very first X-Men movie, and anyone attempted playing Wolverine in real life, and so he was nervous as hell, of course.
Right.
He'd been training very hard to get in shape, and they called him, he was known as the ninja, because even the guys who were training him said, I've never seen anyone train like he trained. He said he just goes on 10 hours a day, straight. Anyway, so he's there, and he was told by the producers and the director of the movie, listen and study Cal Dodd's voice from the series. Because the only reference that folks had for Wolverine was my voice from 92 to 97. And this is 3 years later, they're shooting the first movie. So they were there, it's a wine and cheese party. And they said, we'd like the two Wolverines to meet. Hugh, this is Cal Dodd, our Wolverine. And they just looked at me like he could hardly wait to say something. And Cal, this is Hugh Jackman, our very first Wolverine. Pleasure, great to meet you. And he said, pleasure to meet you, Mike, but I'm sick and tired listening to your voice. Sick and tired listening to your voice. And I said, what? He said, yeah, I was telling, listen, your voice, but I got enough to do with the voice and the fighting and Wolverine himself without, but I'm trying to get there. We talked for about 2 minutes, and he's just leaving. He said, okay, there you go. And he turned up, and I did Wolverine's voice, and said, hey, turned around and said, don't miss this. He just went, get out of here. He didn't really mess it up. He did a great job, I thought. I loved it. Yeah. And when I first watched it, I turned it off. I mean, I walked away, out of the theater. Because he's 6'3", Wolverine's 5'3". Right. And he didn't have that outfit on. I said, what are you wearing? What are you going to do? And everyone, Rogue didn't look like Rogue and stuff. And I said, what is this bullshit? But I watched it, it was something else.
Yeah, he's incredible. Thank you. It's good meeting you. Enjoy the rest of the con.
Thank you, boys. Thank you so much.
It's great meeting you, sir. Pleasure.
And we are back. So I hope you hopefully enjoyed that interview. And I believe that's about it. Anything else we need to share for the good of the group?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, watch the Three Body Problem if you didn't, because we're going to be reviewing that in 3 weeks. So you have 3 weeks to do it.
Or read
before
it.
this comes out. Or read it. I don't
Or
know if
both.
I'll have it read by then, but I might. It might be. I might have it started by then, and then I can
It's
do the
a pretty
comparison as well.
quick read.
Yeah. So, but that's kind of where we're heading next, and I think that about does it. So, Miles, why don't you take us out of the show?
All right. Till next time, good night and good luck.
We'll see ya.
Leave your tips on the table.
And go boldly to sci-fi-dinerpodcast.com. Sci-Fi Diner on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. Check us out. Send us your feedback.
Absolutely.